It's a video on the Crosman Town and Country 108, and there was a 107 as well. The 108 was 22 caliber, which this is, and the 107 was .177. Made in 1949. 1 year, maybe a few were, some were made, into maybe 1950, but the majority were made in 1949. It came out at $24.95, which at the time was just a very expensive gun. The junior, this is the senior. The junior came out at $14.95. It would continue on, but at $14.95 it was more in line with the markets, and people at that time, customers just looked at this as just too expensive, and that, I think, killed it. What makes it interesting, given the price, it was an extremely well-made gun, and look at this. This is a very weighty brass receiver. Everything's brass except what would normally, of course, not be brass, which should be the bolt and the trigger, things like that, the arm, pumping arm. But everything else was just massively made in brass. Nice place for this to hook back, nice and again brass, and plenty of a place to hook on. And if the only way to know if you have a 1949 is, if you look, there's no really anything to indicate who made this gun except in one place, and that is right here. The Crosman, if you have a 1949, this plate, the butt plate, is smooth and has just the logo right there, and that's it. Only way you'd know it's a Crosman, except if you look in books and you know. But that's their logo and the pellet. What's interesting about this gun is, it's called a Town and Country because of the sighting system, and it was very unique. In the town, you would use this at a peep sight. And country, you would use, it had an open sight. And if you can see that open sight right there, a little open sight, and then the peep. And they would line up on top of each other. One was on top of each other. So the sighting system had to be pretty unique. And that was back here. Let me get it back to where it was here. This is, again, all brass, which is really cool. But the higher blade would line up with the open sight, and if you wanted to use the peep, you had a ring here that you could screw out that released it back, and you could put it back down, screw it back, lock it, and then this is the ramp sight for the peep. And actually, they lined up very well. I was using this, and I have a metal squirrel target that has a little 1.5 inch center that you can knock through, and I used the peep sight and got it, and used the open sight and got it as well in one shot, both shots, first time. So line up, and it's kind of fun, and actually in some sense practical, because I don't know if you've ever used peep sights when twilight comes, it's pretty useless. This has an extremely small aperture hole, which makes it very accurate if you're target shooting, but if there's not enough light, it's useless. So you had the ability, if you were using this gun in the twilight or lower light conditions, to go to an open sight by just that quick change of the blade. Kind of fun. Don't know many other guns that would have that. It makes it a fun gun to collect because of that. And also because I think it's just a massively well-built gun. Performance, I used Crosman 22 pellets, 14.3 grain hollow points, and 6 pumps gave me 580 feet per second, 8 pumps 630. This really was not meant to be a powerhouse. It was meant to be more of a trainer for shooting. It was kind of looks like an M1 Garand, and there was a retired general that worked for Crosman as a consultant, and I think a lot of his influence went into this. But it was meant mainly, they were starting shooting clubs, and it was meant to be kind of a trainer for that. And you know, power back in 1949, who had a chronograph? Not anybody, so they didn't really, I don't think, put much emphasis on that. But those numbers are decent for work, really. Very accurate. Because it's a pump, there really is no recoil. And you can be very accurate and very easily, because you don't have to, spring would jump on you, spring power, and you have to really be a little more careful with those and know how to hold them. This is very easy. 25 feet. You know, I was getting like pellet on pellet, really. Of course, you're only as good as the shooter, and my eyes are pretty old, so but it certainly seemed to be very accurate to me. The open sight for older eyes is a little more problematic, but certainly usable by me. Just not as easy. The only other identification on these, or number, is in here. There's a number that is stamped to identify the stock. This was one piece of wood. Mine's 256, I believe. But that's the only other number, and I was on a website. The highest number we saw was 1303, 1305, I believe. So may give an indication of how many of these were made. But really, no one knows. Crosman did not keep good records. They kept no records as far as production, so have no idea. But they're not an easy find, so that may be some indication of the number. The 107s supposedly are harder to find, but don't know if that's true, because we were talking to collectors online and they seem to have an equal number of 107s. So again, who knows? Just a fun gun, massive. That's what I think attracted me to it and attracts me to it as an owner. It is just well built, as good a built pumper I have. Maybe the best, most well built pumper that Crosman made, or that's out there. Probably the only one thing that would be comparable would be the Sheridan Super Grade A or B, and they lasted. They were too expensive as well and didn't last. Very and contemporary with this. Crosman may have been trying to compete with them. Looks like some of the characteristics from that gun made it into here, the massive receiver and things like that. So, anyway, fun gun. That's the Crosman Town and Country 108.